I was originally going to do this video just to cover a variety of disaster films, but then I noticed there's a bunch of made-for-TV ones that end with an exclamation point. So you know what I gotta do. Here's 5 disaster films you may have missed or forgotten about. Tornado! Tornado is a made-for-TV disaster film that premiered May 7th, 1996 on Fox. I just mentioned this one in last week's Twister video. If you missed it, you should go watch it now. Tornado is about a storm chaser who discovers his friend has built a machine that needs to be launched into a tornado so it can collect data that'll help in being able to predict future tornado strikes. That sounds a little familiar. The movie was directed by Noel Nosek, who'd been directing since the 70s with a variety of movies from King of the Mountain to Summer Fantasy to Without a Kiss Goodbye. He largely became known as a made-for-TV director with 27 films done across 4 networks and numerous cable channels. The movie has a small but impressive cast with Bruce Campbell, Ernie Hudson, and L.Q. Jones. The movie also has ex-football player Bo Eason, who after this was in the big-budget disaster film Volcano. The other star of the film is Tornado stock footage. It's always interesting to me to see Bruce Campbell in a movie that isn't horror. I know he's done plenty over the years, but this was in the 90s where he was doing a variety of genres so he wouldn't get typecast. This is also in the years when he was playing Autolycus in both Hercules and Xena. The movie was produced by Hallmark Entertainment, but not for their channel. They sold it to Fox. Maybe if it had something to do with Christmas, they would have aired it on their network. Oh, never mind. There was this. The movie was released on DVD in 2000, but it's out of print. It's available to buy digitally on Amazon, but not streaming. The full movie is available on YouTube. Flood! Flood's a made-for-TV disaster film that premiered November 24th, 1976 on NBC. The movie was produced by Irwin Allen, who many refer to as the Master of Disaster, due to his many blockbuster disaster films like The Poseidon Adventure, The Towering Inferno, and Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. With his theatrical disaster movies doing well, he signed on to produce 3 made-for-TV films for ABC. He made Flood with Warner Brothers Television, and for some reason, it ended up on NBC instead of ABC. He produced Time Travelers, which did air on ABC on March 19, 1976. The other was supposed to be a film called The Forgotten World, but I couldn't find anything about it, so I'm thinking it may have never been made for one reason or another. Flood's about a small town in Oregon that's a thriving fishing village. After an extended rainstorm, the lake begins to overflow, and a group of guys work to open the floodgates before the dam bursts and floods the town. Much like Allen's other films, this one has some nice miniatures. Although, unlike his other films, they were able to avoid disaster, so while some flooding did happen, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. This caused critics to say the film failed to offer much excitement. The movie was shot mostly in areas around Oregon, including Eugene and Brownsville. Allen made even more made-for-TV disaster films after this, like Fire, The Return of Captain Nemo, and Hanging by a Thread. Flood was released on DVD in 2010, and it's still available. It was also just remastered as part of the Irwin Allen Shout Factory box set. Flood is not available for streaming. It is on YouTube in Spanish, and on the YouTube channel Creature Features, which is your horror host kind of show. Heatwave! Heatwave's a made-for-TV disaster film that premiered on January 26th, 1974 on ABC. Heatwave's about a heat wave that cripples California. We're going through that right now on the East Coast. Anyway, after the blackout, the lead character Frank and his pregnant wife Laura decide to move to their mountain cabin in the hopes of escaping the heat wave. On the way there, they get carjacked by an elderly man.
I'll have to take your car. You'll just have to understand I'm taking this
Look, I
car.
don't mind giving you a hand, but, I can't. Are you crazy? I told you, I can't give you the car. Can't you see my wife is pregnant?
And have to walk 8 miles to town. When they arrive, they find squatters have moved into the cabin, and now they have to deal with both them and the heat wave. The movie had a very tiny budget, and as such, most of the horrible heat wave related things happen off screen. Forest fires, blackouts, and so on. The movie heads right into Silly Town as they build a giant fish tank to help protect the newborn baby from the heat. This was one of those ABC movies of the week, which were fairly popular back then. From 1969 to 1975, ABC would run a new made-for-TV movie, not every week, but almost every week. In the 6 years that it ran, they aired 257 made-for-TV movies. The movie was broadcast in the US and then later rebroadcast on British TV, Channel 5. Heatwave wasn't released on DVD, it's not available for streaming, but it is on YouTube.
Fire! 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 Fire!
Fire is a made-for-TV movie that premiered May 8th, 1977. This was another one of the made-for-TV disaster films from Irwin Allen. Again, I refer to him being called the master of disaster. It was about 90% of his career. This movie was directed by Earl Bellamy, who also directed Flood. The movie's about a criminal working on a chain gang who starts a forest fire so he can escape. The fire gets out of control and moves dangerously close to a small mountain town. The movie stars Ernest Borgnine as the owner of a lumber mill and Eric Estrada. It follows the usual Irwin Allen disaster movie theme in that there's a bunch of drama going on, and this disaster brings out both the best and worst of people. Even though the movie was made for TV in the US, it made it to theaters overseas. The film was released on DVD in 2010 as part of Warner Brothers' Warner Archive collection. It's still in print, so it's not that hard to find. Fire is also part of the Irwin Allen collection. You can also find it on YouTube. 0 Hour. 0 Hours hit theaters on November 13th, 1957. It's an airline disaster film directed by Hal Bartlett. It's based on the 1956 teleplay Flight into Danger by John Castle and Arthur Haley. The movie's about an airplane that's flying to Vancouver. While on the trip, numerous people on the plane, including the pilot, get food poisoning from the fish they were serving. The pilot can no longer fly the plane, so they start to search for someone on the plane who can safely bring them down. The only one who can fly is a passenger, Ted Stryker, who hasn't flown in 10 years and is suffering from shell shock. Stryker was a member of the Royal Canadian Air Force, and due to a decision he made during World War II, everyone in his squadron except for him died. He's fallen into a deep depression and hasn't flown since. However, with the help of ground control, they get Stryker to land the plane safely, and the people on board are taken to the hospital. This may sound familiar, and that's because this was the foundation for the movie Airplane, which also has an exclamation point. Airplane follows 0 Hour almost beat for beat, and it's hilarious how they took a fairly well-received airplane disaster film and made it into one of the best comedies of all time. 0 Hour was remade in 1971 as a made-for-TV movie, Terror in the Sky, so it still has a tie-in to the made-for-TV movies on this list. 0 Hour is not available for streaming, but it's on video on demand on a bunch of platforms. It's not available to stream on YouTube, but you can rent it. Well, that wasn't a disaster. I'll see y'all next time. Kaboom!
You got all that right, Haas. I'm still a finisher, and you are still a loser.